Do you remember how you first experienced the internet? Hello, I'm Bobby. It's amazing how the internet has evolved, and I founded Vurb to continue this evolution by reinventing surfing the web. That's right, surfing the web. It's a throwback to the early 90s when surfing embodied this new and magical experience of flowing blue link to blue link. But this magic, this connectedness was short-lived. The rapid growth of the web scattered content across millions of websites, forcing us to jump site to site, assembling bits and pieces of information. Look, this is what it takes to plan a night out. Seriously? We've traded the fluidity and connectedness of surfing for stacks of browser tabs and single-purpose mobile apps. But why do we need to settle on a fragmented web? This is why I founded Vurb, to reinvent surfing the internet on web or mobile by weaving together services you use. Let me show you what I mean. I'll start with an example of how our team plans movies and a dinner. So let's start with a search for movies. And when I select one, Vurb generates a card from services like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, and also provides me with direct links to these sources for more information. When I pull in additional movies to compare, like Rio 2 and Captain America, I don't have to leave the page or open new tabs. Instead, Vurb automatically organizes my activity into a stream that stays with me. So if I decide on a movie like Spider-Man 2 and look for tickets, Vurb takes my location and finds nearby theaters. With one click, I can learn more about this theater, find out where it is, and in just another click, I can find restaurants nearby the theater. See how nice things are when we can share context across services? So let's take a look at Keen's Steakhouse. And again, I get another interactive card with reviews, reservations, and related actions that can take me and connect me with additional services. But let's say I'm done for now. I can review my decisions, and I can also save this entire activity stream into a collection, which I can share publicly, or in this case, with just my team. When they confirm, Vurb can help me with making reservations and purchasing tickets. All right, so planning a night out, done. But that was just one example, an appetizer really of the possibilities that exist when we bring services together. So let's use Vurb in a completely different way, by learning more about our judges right on stage with me. So I'll begin by searching for Ruloff, and Vurb's semantic search determines Crunchbase to be the best source of that information. From here, I can dive right into Sequoia Capital, learn more about the recent investments like Whisper, see who co-invested with Sequoia, like Joe Greenstein, cross-reference Joe's Crunchbase profile of AngelList, and I can go on, like looking at LinkedIn for mutual connections, Twitter to read his tweets, or just browsing through Joe's investments right on AngelList. These possibilities for surfing increase exponentially as we add additional services to the platform. All right, so I know what you're thinking now. What about mobile? Great question. Can we switch to the iPhone, please? Everything you've seen on the web is also available on mobile.
We get the iPhone up, please. You guys want to come out and fix this?
Four. Sorry, 4. Yeah. That's fine. Sorry.
Looks pretty cool so far, right? Yeah?
The anticipation. Boom. All right, there we go. All right, so with just one swipe, I can view all of my previous searches because Vurb syncs my activity and data across devices. So let's figure out where to go for dinner tonight. Using search, I'll type in Morimoto, where we'll be meeting our friends tonight, and I get a card with all the information that I need. So here we go, Morimoto, and I have all this information in front of me, and Vurb even deep links right into other apps on my phone, like Yelp, Foursquare, OpenTable, and Google Maps. When I save this card into our shared collection around Disrupt, my team instantly gets a push notification. I can then view this collection and see all the cards my team has shared, like places, interesting startups, people, videos, and more. I can even write notes and comments right on a card. If I want to share this information outside my team, sending a text or posting on Facebook only takes a few seconds. With Vurb, we're taking the pain out of searching and sharing on mobile. Great, let's go back to the slides. So what you've seen is the next evolution of search, browsing, and sharing. Vurb is an intelligent layer over the internet that helps you get things done in one place. Doing this is really hard. To build these contextual bridges across services, we use data technologies like semantic search and recommendations. But data alone is not enough. We also design from the ground up new user interfaces and interaction paradigms. The work pays off because when we can weave together these services, we can explore opportunities around this interconnected graph of services, collections, and people. And with that, we can finally bring back the magic of surfing, fluidly moving from link to link, service to service on any screen or device. Surfing in real life hasn't gone any easier, but Vurb is making it easy to surf the internet. We're starting by connecting services around places, movies, and media. Join us in our mission to reinvent how we use the internet and sign up for our beta at Vurb.com. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So I love the philosophy and the ideas behind this. To make sure I'm understanding it right, it seems like you basically construct a card. So you're basically transforming the web or components of the web into a card.
Right. So what we're putting out today is kind of a framework or an architecture and thinking about what happens when all these services break out of their silos and they plug into kind of this unified platform. So if you think about all these services are kind of like apps on our platform, they all output kind of this unit of interactive cards. Right. And when you can now make them compatible and mix and match them, then you have to do kind of the intelligence on top of that of building these bridges that say, hey, this service has a relationship with these other services.
The problem is, so while I love the idea, there's so much data that is not actually, that's stuck in the app silos, right? So, I mean, in the demo up there, you had Whisper, but it was data from Crunchbase or something about Whisper. It wasn't actually Whisper data. It wasn't from the app, right? You can't get inside the app.
Well,
And
Whisper could be something that we integrate onto our platform over time.
If they partner with you, right? But you have to
Correct. But in this situation, it's like, okay, this is more of a startup research scenario that we demonstrated. So the services that you would use for that information would be AngelList and Crunchbase and LinkedIn and things like that. Now, if we expand our verticals to say, hey, let's get information from Whisper and Secret and all those other apps, then we would try to work with them to integrate it. But this is kind of the beginning of the construction of this platform.
Right. I mean, I love like I said, philosophically, I love it. But I think that, I mean, the web is historically, we've gone through these ebbs and flows of centralization versus decentralization. Sure. And it feels like in the app world, you know, I mean, like Netflix wish list, right? They closed down the API to that about a year ago, right? That would be nice to have,
sure,
right, for you. So it just feels like that's gonna.
Right, and so one of the reasons why we're announcing our mission at TechCrunch Disrupt is we do think that it's time that people really start thinking about, there are so many benefits when services can work together. Let's sort of work together and say, okay, let's open up this information, let's construct this, let's get developers excited about it because, it is a big challenge and we can begin with a lot of the services that do have open APIs. We are seeing more services publish out APIs, and then we can work out individual content partnerships with really great brands to bring in those services. But it's not like today on day one, we can get all the content accessible today.
Yeah.
Well, and there is a lot going on with startups that are doing app crawling. So, I mean, I think that much like web crawling is now pretty much a commodity and everyone knows how to do it, there will come a point. The real question is, can you do personalized app crawling and actually take the access people have on the phone and crawl it?
Right.
I loved a lot of the ideas.
That's what, yeah.
I think, I thought a lot about it. I think that the notion that there's this sort of meta step on mobile where you have to sort of pick and choose, I call it the appification of everything. Like what you call your cards, what you're essentially doing is saying, here's a restaurant, it's an app. Here's what you can do to it. You can book it, you can get directions to it, et cetera. Here's a person, here's what you can do with the person when the person's an app. And it's a clever idea, I like that a lot. I also like the search history I think when you look at different tools, the one piece that's a question mark for me is whether or not the collections will really pan out, because I think when you've seen like little tools where people get to save their searches and share it, those generally don't really go very far. They become a favored tool of a few people, but not really of the masses. I guess one question I have is, in the appification of everything, or the cards as you call it, it seems like what you need are templates. So, are you basically limited in terms of your scale and the types of topics you can cover based on the types of templates you have to create to ultimately generate those cards or apps?
Right, so part of our design process is to really understand what is the data that these services can provide. The other side is to look at how do we deliver a good user experience around this data, right? Because a big issue today with apps and websites out there is all the layouts and the way they present information is very different. So on one hand, you have kind of this concept of like cognitive overhead in processing this. There's also a lot of interaction redundancy. So what we've done is we have streamlined kind of the layouts that we do, and we try to map them in kind of these simplified templates that people understand, kind of like the cards that you get when you search on search engines are trying to move in that direction. But as we add new services, new verticals, what we would do is we construct kind of a card that sort of optimizes that user experience around it. Now, as we're scaling out the platform and inviting, say, developers to come in and create their integrations so we can really connect the web, what we can do are strategies like, here's a set of common sort of templates that we like people to structure their information in. But at the same time, we could be working with certain providers to say, hey, if you want to brand your template this way and make it really sort of awesome for this particular service so that it's interactive, then we can be working with them. But we do want to maintain certain sort of visual standards to make sure that it's a great user experience.
So there have been so many attempts over the last decade or so to come up with sort of alternatives to Google, including by Google's direct competitors, startups, and arguably some have been improvements in some ways, but it just seems like the users are so incredibly conditioned to go to Google. It's embedded in so many different places. Just curious how you think about that, or maybe you think because of the switch to mobile that there'll be a new opportunity, or?
Absolutely. So I wouldn't say that we would consider ourselves kind of a head-on direct replacement for Google or other search engines, because search engines, their mission is to organize the world's information by crawling all the websites out there, all the public
but
data
in terms
out
of
there,
user behavior, right?
and surfacing.
You want the user, at least in some cases, to go
Correct.
and use Vurb instead of Google.
Right. So in search engines today, they kind of give you some results and then they push you off to whatever website that is. So that's great when you're looking for kind of one-off pieces of information. But when you're doing something where it's more of like decision-oriented, where I'm trying to make a comparison between certain things on one or more services, or I'm planning something, then Vurb kind of becomes that do engine or that decision engine. And that's where our value and differentiation come out. And then building on top of that is, because you can actually store and capture this activity stream, you can then share that through these collections. So it could be kind of a curation-oriented play where I'm putting together a list of restaurants I'm sending to my friend. Or it could be kind of a research play where you have an analyst saying, hey, here's some stocks that I was looking up, here's some companies I'm looking up, and I'm sending that. So those are all use cases that are fundamentally different than using a traditional search engine. And to the point, we would love to work with search engines because we see it as another service on our platform that can make everything just that much more intelligent.
So, Bobby, I have a question. Congrats on the great design. I'm curious to use it. I always like to get a sense before I judge, but I'm curious, what services or products were you using that were failing that led you to kind of create this?
Right.
What was the pain, I guess?
Yeah, so as kind of a person who's been using the web for a really long time, I just thought it's kind of silly that I have to be touching so many different websites or having so many tabs open. So if I'm looking up restaurants because I'm a foodie, it's like I like to cross-reference the Yelp rating with the open table, with the Zagat and things like that, right? And you open all these tabs. And so I was thinking, collectively we waste so many minutes trying to assemble that information. We're also like making comparisons all the time, and it's not easy to do that, and even harder on mobile. The other side of you know, the kind of the thing that made me start Vurb is the fact that when I am looking for these restaurants or these places, I don't typically go to their homepage. I go straight to my search box, and I'll do like a navigation-based query. So, you know, how can we sort of take that behavior, marry it with this messy problem of windows and tabs, and come up with something that hopefully can benefit how all of us use the internet?
In your experience so far when you've been beta testing, what's the majority of your queries? Is it places? You demoed Ruloff as a people search or person search.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, where are you falling to use it the most?
So it's sort of correlated with kind of the initial verticals that we've wanted to tackle. So people are always looking up places. They're always looking at movies, medias like video, music. And so I'd say most of the use is around places, looking up things, getting reservations, and even curating that information, just because it's a natural sort of interface and natural system for doing that. You know, a lot of people have told me that they have these big Excel spreadsheets of restaurants they always send out to friends and things like that, and now they just put it right on Vurb where it's an interactive list.
Great.
I think that, you know, I mean, I think about this a lot in regards to the mobile, the true mobile experience, the native mobile experience. And, you know, you refer to it as a do engine, and yet in so many cases, or so many users view apps as action, right, as do, right? So when I think I need to go somewhere or I'm looking for something about a place, I'll probably start maybe with a mapping app. It's straight to action. And I'm concerned that you are like 3 or 4 clicks away. I need to go into the generic Vurb app. I then need to construct a query, and then I need to essentially frame that query, adjust it, and then I've got what I wanted. And I think that you're several steps behind that. I think on the web I can see it, but in your tab metaphor, but in the app world I don't see it.
So I think it depends on the use case and the behavior of the user. So if I'm, say, looking up a restaurant and I want to get a map for it, I could open up the Vurb app. I type in the restaurant name. I have the card of all the information. And now I have access to Yelp, OpenTable, Google Maps, all right there. I also have contextual actions that can recommend to me other services. Now, if I'm in the use case of I just want to find Google Maps on it, I might go to my phone, I might type Google Maps. I still have to enter in the restaurant name. But if I'm now deciding, oh, well, I really want to find out this information, or I need the Yelp reviews, then I've just added 10 more steps to my workflow. And similarly, if I'm looking something up like Crunchbase, you know, I have to use mobile Safari, maybe I have to Google it, I look through those results, and that's why we know that for a fact that mobile search is broken, and that's something that we see as a big opportunity here.
I wonder if you, in mobile specifically, working with the big streams to like help them construct
Absolutely.
rich cards could be a slightly different direction, but highly actionable, yeah. Sorry.
Hello? All right. Ruloff and Fred, did either of you guys want to quickly weigh in on this? I'm not sure if you guys...
Well, I think you got a real sort of Faustian choice, which is, do you try to be a horizontal tool for everything, or do you try to create very vertical slices? And the problem with the horizontal tool is you're going to disappoint people too much, and they're going to get pissed off and they're going to stop using it. You can create vertical slices that are mobile apps for travel, for people, or things like that. But that's, you know, that sort of constrains the power of your technology in some ways that might not be great. But look, the first internet investment I ever made in 1994 was to try to solve this problem. I've been interested in this problem for 20 years, and this is a bitch, and it will kill you, and I don't think you'll be successful.
All right.
Let's try to end on a potentially more positive note. Marissa, if Yahoo were to offer an application very similar to this, could it possibly be a loophole to like a Microsoft search deal or something, or just?
No, I think.
In your way, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Fred makes an interesting point. I'd pretty heavily disagree with it on a bunch of levels. Sorry, Fred. But I mean, I do, because I actually think that I like people who work on big and ambitious ideas, and I think that search isn't nearly well done enough. And I think that there's a lot of power there. And I think to take your technology and try and verticalize it really sells it short, because I think that fundamentally people do want a better horizontal tool. They want to be able to answer their long tail queries, as well as they want to be able to do their head queries. So I would hope, I actually think that we need more companies that are building really big, ambitious, horizontal applications. I think there's, you're off to a promising start. And I would hope that as we give advice to entrepreneurs, that we actually encourage them to build for bigger problems more horizontally and actually less vertically.
I'm just encouraging you to avoid all the pain that you're inevitably headed for.
And this conversation, I'm sure, will continue backstage as the judges go back and deliberate. That was Vurb. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks.